Hey guys, this is Megan, and this is my final video discussion for COM4413, week 5, and this is a reflective discussion and also kind of a peek at, our final analysis and where we went in that direction. And so, sorry about the reflection of my glasses, but I am going to read a little bit from my final, and so I want to have those on. The first part of our discussion, we were supposed to share about 3 things that we picked up from this course. And I think there was just so much content to explore and delve into in this course. I could go in so many directions with that. One of the initial things that I found really interesting was I screened I Love Lucy for my kind of historical television. I think it was week 1. And when I screened that, when I was writing about it, I was really exposed to just how revolutionary that sitcom was, how revolutionary Lucille Ball was, and how she really pushed television forward, especially the sitcom. But it was, I always knew of I Love Lucy as like a classic television, right? Always funny, still relatable, but I never knew about how the way that they filmed their show broke new ground and changed the way that we watch TV through the course of history. I never knew how challenging it was for her on so many levels, not only because she was a female, but because her husband was from Cuba, because the production company didn't want to pay for the way she wanted to do things, and so I'll start my own company. And actually that ended up benefiting her more in the end, because she negotiated having more rights to what she was creating, and that windfall went to her when she hit success. So it was just really fascinating to pick up on everything that was behind the show. And, what made it classic wasn't just the humor and the relatability. There's just so much more that went into making that show what it was. That can be credited to, to her and her production team and to Desi Arnaz as well. So that was really interesting to find out. Another thing that I really enjoyed learning about was just the different genres and approaching those genres, exploring those genres. I appreciated how each week we kind of had our own selection or many options to choose from. That gave me a chance to, as I was trying to decide what I wanted to watch, kind of exploring a few different options initially, and just learning so much more about what shows really, were important in these genres in the course of history, and what each of those shows contributed. And like having to watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that show was popular. I believe I was actually a sophomore, which is what Buffy was at the start of the season, or the start of the series as well. So, it was right in line with, my age, what should have been appealing to me, but I was so busy in high school that I was never really a huge TV fan, and at that time, streaming didn't exist, and, my family wouldn't have the means to record something and watch it later, or the interest, really. So it was just not a show I really ever watched. I knew about it. I knew it was this kind of cult classic, but having to go back and even though we were only required to watch the pilot, I actually went like a season in to that show after I watched the pilot, because it was interesting and it was quirky, and the storyline was compelling, and it was nostalgic, because it's like, hey, it's the 90s, it's high school when I was in high school, and how those metaphors related to me, and thinking about the analytical aspect of how those metaphors relate to me, as the audience member, as the viewer, was just really interesting, and gave a new layer to watching television for me. Made me more interested in what went into all these other shows that I love. On the production side of things, did any of the other shows that I love change the course of television history, or influence it even? And kind of going in and researching just out of my own desire to know, spurred by experiencing that in this course. A third thing that I can think of that was really compelling, kind of ties into what I actually want to talk about in my final, and that is the debate of scholarly analysis of television and even pop culture. We've touched on pop culture in a lot of other courses, and Marcel Danesi, his book, Popular Culture, I love that book. We've used it in several courses. I used it heavily in my research and quoted it in my final. And I just never knew about that line of how pop culture is kind of relegated as trivial, or kind of set aside as lowbrow. I mean, we've studied that, and I understand the differences between highbrow and lowbrow, but when it comes to, a scholarly analysis, or, it's breaking ground when universities are offering courses that are pop culture related. I cannot remember where I read this, unfortunately, but the university that was doing the Gaga for Gaga course, and using Lady Gaga's life and music and acting now too, as a means of an academic course, was really controversial. And dang it if I can't remember where I read that. But anyway, it was just interesting to me that there's such a delineated debate about whether we should even have college courses that explore culture through the lens of pop culture, and things that are contemporary. And that just kind of blows my mind. I think it's totally relevant. And at some point in history, all the things that we study now, regardless of if they're highbrow or lowbrow, they were contemporary, they were new, they were avant-garde, they were challenging norms. I mean, when I was researching about comedy, comedy has always been this thing that levels the playing field. And I'll just segue that into the glimpse of my final. I'm going to actually just read this quote from Popular Culture, Marcel Danesi, sorry, I don't know how to say it. But he wrote on page 283 of that book, "From ancient times, spectacles and performance evoking tears and laughter have balanced the psychic tension between the sacred and the profane present within us. The laughter is the laughter of all people, not just intellectuals and cognoscenti. Because it mocks and derides both the sacred and the profane, it is emotionally powerful. It brings the sacred, politics, religion, business, under the microscope of comedy, where it can be examined cathetically." And I go on to write, what makes us laugh? Why does it make us laugh? And I'm actually not out to answer those questions in my final, but rather use my final as a statement in favor of exploring those questions through the lens of a modern theatrical text. And I actually focused on the sitcom Friends, because the sitcom Friends is so iconic, so pervasive in 90s culture. And even now there's a resurgence with Netflix having put all the episodes up for streaming. There's, a whole new generation of people still relating to and finding humor and critiquing this sitcom that had such a profound impact on society. And I think if a media text can have such a profound impact on society, why isn't there scholarly debate and analysis about this pop culture artifact? I mean, people were cutting their hair a certain way because of the show. Phrases like, how you doing? And, oh my God. Like, everybody knows Janice's phrase from Friends. It's things that people say still, we were on a break. Everybody knows where that comes from. And so I just think that warrants a look into, like, why do so many people identify with this sitcom? Why was it so popular? Why is it still so popular? Why do people show up on the Warner Brothers studio tour set and sit on the couch at Central Perk on their soundstage and cry? Like, why does this show have that much of an impact on so many people's lives? And if it does, why is that not worth scholarly analysis? Why is that, why is that relegated to just like trivial discussion? Like, no, there's more of a psychosocial element to that I think is worth studying. That there's more to explore there that is a reflection and a refraction of society. And so that's pretty much what my final deals with. And I got pretty into it in my experience of kind of going over my paper, and I just really enjoyed this class and having the opportunity to see pop culture television in a different way, and just to learn more about how television has evolved, and to see even now with complex TV and more narrative complexities in the shows that we're streaming, like how that's going to change society moving forward, and how that's going to affect us in regards to the way that we ingest media and storytelling in the modern age. So thanks guys, it's a good course, and I will see you next time.